like to call the September 26th Governing Board meeting to order. We're actually going to get started with the public hearing portion of our meeting this evening first. Governing Board members present are Brian Parks, Paul Bixler, Paul Jensen, Michael Todd, and myself, Mark Aguirre. We're having the meeting here at Jerry Rovey District Facility. And with that, Mr. Todd, if you could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, update on district override expenditures for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the governing board. Statute requires school districts with voter-approved budget overrides to hold a public meeting each year between September 1st and October 31st, at which an update is given on the budget and expense of the overrides. This will work. Let me see. Do I have the wrong one? Is it not on? Sorry. My bad. My apologies. There we go. The same statute allows a school district to increase its budget by up to an additional 15% of its revenue control limit if the voters of the district approve by election. The voter authorization is given for up to 7 years. If the additional increase is for 5 years or more, the percentage of the increase will remain constant up to the 15%, except during the next to the last year when the percentage starts to phase down 1/3 each year until it's exhausted. A district can avoid the phase down by passing another override election. And I would just pause for a moment to say that much of this information has been presented over the last several meetings since May, I think. So I'm going to kind of just brush on the highlights and skim through here, but if you have any questions, please feel free to stop and ask. In November of 2016, the voters authorized the Liberty School District for a 10% maintenance and operations override, and that approved purpose, as approved by the voters, is listed here on this slide. Overall, the override supports salaries and benefits and was spent in full at the end of the 21-22 fiscal year, and all dollars that were spent were per the voter-approved purpose. The next few slides are representative of the individual purposes and supporting evidence of the spending. This first slide that you'll see here is the impacts to achievement. As you can see here, we had those results were reflected in 10% growth in K-3 literature, 5% growth in 3-8 ELA, and 2% growth in 3-8 math. The district continued to maintain class size less than the baseline ratio, which was 27-1 for the 21-22 school year. You'll see that very last column is 26-1. Without the override, the ratio would have been 28, almost 29-1. The override continued to fund 100% of music, art, and physical education teachers. We actually funded 19 specials teachers this past year. In order to
Ms. Basinger, can I stop you? Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
19 specials teachers just this past year.
For 21-22. That is not for this year.
Yep.
This is for last year.
Thank you.
Yes. As far as impacts to provide competitive salaries for teachers, you can see that the district has continued to work to provide competitive salaries for teachers. As presented here, you can see continued year-over-year increase for our teacher, average teacher salary. In addition, we've been able to provide a signing bonus, which augments the teacher compensation. For 22-23, that we were still, the budget is for the same purpose as per the voter-approved purpose from November of 2016. However, for this 2023 year, 22-23 year, you will note that due to the November 21 election not passing, that the override did begin to phase down for 1/3 of its full eligible budget. Next year, it will phase down another third, and then it will be exhausted if it does not pass in a future election. And with that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So is there any questions from the public at all? This is a chance to ask any questions on the expenditures. Hearing none? Board members, do you have any questions at this time?
I have just a quick question. So there's 19 specialist teachers we saw up there that Mark had brought up, or Mr. Aguirre brought up. Are we at risk of losing those?
We are at risk at losing anything that's funded by the override.
So that's how critical this is.
That is how critical it is, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. President, it's a real quick question. It appears that the should the overrides, the lack thereof, continue, that what we're trying to preserve is instruction, especially in the core content areas. Is that correct?
100% of the override monies are spent on an instructional purpose, yes.
While at the same time trying to keep our class sizes within reasonable limits.
We had, per the authorization with the override, we had our baseline year of 27-1, and that was our goal, to make sure that we maintained or was lower than that with the override funding.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none? Move on to item 1.4, update on capital investments financed through bonds and district additional assistance for fiscal year 2021-2022. Ms. Basinger.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, similar to the override and pursuant to statute, school districts that issue bonds are required to hold a public meeting each year between September 1 and October 31, at which, again, an update on the spending is provided. This is an annual requirement until the bond proceeds are spent. In addition to the bond spending, the district uses other capital funds, and in the next few slides, you'll see a summary of those capital funds and the spending for the 21-22 fiscal year. The next two slides are capital funds definitions. On this first slide, you'll see Fund 610. That is where most of the day-to-day capital expense occurs. Fund 620, adjacent ways, is funding that's used for improvement of adjacent roadways. And then Fund 630, which is bond building, and it accounts for proceeds from district bond issues. The spending of these monies is restricted to voter-approved purpose. On this slide, you'll see Fund 650, which is the Capital Gifts and Donations Fund. And then the last three funds you'll see there, Fund 686, 691, and 695, are all three managed by the Arizona School Facilities Board. Fund 686 is emergency deficiencies monies, and its fundings to correct emergency deficiencies, really what the same thing as the name. Fund 691, building renewal, that is monies that are provided by the state to maintain adequacy of existing school facilities. And then 695 is the new school facilities, which accounts for monies, again, received from the School Facilities Board to be used for constructing new school facilities. So if you look at our capital funding status, these are all of those funds. And this slide actually depicts, you'll see the first column is the fund number, the second is the description. We have provided a beginning fund balance, the revenues received, expenditures, and then the ending fund balance as of June 30, 2022. From all the capital funds, as of June 30, 2022, we have a little over $3.9 million remaining. This next slide is bringing it back to in order of those capital funds. The state, the use for the state provided district additional assistance during this past year. Again, this is where the majority of our day-to-day capital spending does occur. You can see this slide actually lists the description, then it lists all the schools, and then the district, and then the totals, and the percent of those totals. The majority of the funding was spent on technology expense for this past year. You'll note that the bottom line, which says vehicles, the district actually put in a purchase order to purchase 2 buses. However, due to the long lead time, we weren't able to receive them in the fiscal year, so the purchase order was rolled over, and we're hoping to receive those in this fiscal year. We purchased a regular ed and a special education bus. The total amount of spending for the district additional assistance this past year was $1,037,000. This is just a listing of a breakdown of spending under each category, excuse me. And you can see here what was purchased under technology, furniture and equipment, textbooks, instructional aids. We try to be all-inclusive of things, but there may be something that we may have missed, but overall, these are the main things that were purchased. And again, I mentioned the vehicles. They were ordered, but we haven't yet received them. Adjacent ways, this slide actually reflects the spending for that. There were dollars spent at both Liberty and Blue Horizons. I apologize, that middle section is truncated, but it should have Blue Horizons listed there. So between the 2 schools, we spent $775,260 on adjacent ways. So they were included primarily in the 2 construction projects for the Liberty rebuild and Blue Horizons.
When you say adjacent ways, what does that mean exactly?
It's really the name of the fund. So it's Fund 620, and it's per statute, it's funding that is set aside to improve adjacent roadways or any adjacent properties to the school district. So it could include a fire lane access even onto the property, because that is maintained as adjacent as an adjacent roadway. Even if it's through the school, but it's adjacent to the public school property.
And so these are all things that either the state, the county, or the city would require, correct?
Could be, yes, per compliance and
For
code.
compliance.
That is correct.
Okay, so the district really has no choice but to set money aside to these, to be in compliance.
We must be in compliance, that is correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Basinger, real quickly, the cost of the buses, because we did order them, that's locked, right? There's no anticipation that it could go up?
We've made the purchase, we're just waiting on that to be delivered. So they have a purchase order that obligates them to, or obligates the district to pay for it. I apologize, that's a question that caught me a little bit off guard, because we actually, they gave us a price, and we said we would purchase it for that price, issued them a purchase order, and we do not anticipate that price going up.
Okay, so normal business practices, we should be okay there.
Yes, sir. So related specifically to the bond expenditures, this slide represents a comparison of the balances on each of the approved line items per the authorized voter pamphlet and the approved capital improvement plan. And so you'll see the description that was listed again in the voter pamphlet, the planned amount of spending, how much has been spent as of June 30, 2022, and then any balance that's remaining on each of those lines. In looking at the use of the bond proceeds, similar to the district additional assistance, we provided a breakdown. You can see the description of the activity and the location at where it was spent. You can see all of the schools, district totals, and then the overall spending totals. The spending of the bonds was primarily still on construction of the the two projects, Liberty Rebuild and Blue Horizons. And we are looking forward to spending on other voter-approved purposes as those additional funding becomes available. This is just a descriptor, again, a listing of the bond proceeds at each of those campuses, just to further describe the spending that occurred. You can, again, see the schools, and then what was spent district-wide, as well as transportation. Again, thinking about the building renewal grants and the monies coming from SFB, the district applied for and received building renewal grants totaling $452,589. The biggest portion of this was finishing up the on-site fire system upgrade at Liberty Elementary School. And then there were two HVAC replacement projects. We were very fortunate to receive the new schools and facilities funding to support the construction of Blue Horizons, and this slide actually reflects the detailed spending for that construction that was funded out of the school facilities monies for Blue Horizons. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them.
Michael, we'll start down at you. Any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Jensen? Speak, sir.
Yeah, just a quick question on the, I think you've already answered it, so no, I have no questions.
Mr. Parks? So again, I think it was asked in the previous topic, but what I'm saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, all monies from the bond is going directly into providing a place for the children to learn, and also into the transportation of getting them into that facility to learn, correct?
I would say essentially, however, I would add to that that it's per the voter approved purpose. So everything that we included with or in that voter pamphlet that was sent out to the public that they actually had available to them when they voted, it's being spent on all the purposes that were included in that. So nothing is being spent outside of what the voters approved.
Is it possible to spend outside what the voters approved? What I'm asking is does this money, is it audited?
Well, there's different things that occur, like arbitrage, like right now we're going through the process for the for this upcoming bond sale. And we have to list out with that bond sale per the federal requirement what those monies will be spent on.
And that's law, correct? That, in other words, we have to do that as being transparent as part of the agreement to the public.
As part of those.
It's kind of the contract between us
correct.
and
the use of those
and the
bond proceeds. That
Thank
is
you.
correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just, in case there was any confusion of how bond monies actually get spent.
Well, that is one of the purposes in these reports, is so that people can see, you can see everything that we spent those monies on, and you can tie those back to all of those, to any of those voter approved purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Spacey.
Mr. President, could I just ask one quick question?
Yes.
I noticed the HVAC for, I believe it was Liberty, was 13,000, is that correct? And we got support from that from the state?
Yes, there were two HVACs, but I believe those two that for building renewal, I think those were at Westar. So
The Westar, well, you're right, it was Westar, it was
okay.
Westar. That seems low.
well, they were about $6,000 to $7,000 a HVAC unit, but that price has definitely gone up. The most recent one that we have that's actually being approved right now, I think it's $13,500 or somewhere in that range. So the price has gone up, the same as just about everything else that we spend money on.
Right, I was thinking of a plant that size to move that much air. It's got to be more than what I would pay for my house. My house is around $6,000 or $7,000.
There's different, well, when you think about it, in most cases, we have an HVAC unit for every classroom, so that puts a lot of different units on a roof. And in addition, there are some that support multiple rooms, but then those are bigger units.
And this probably was one of the smaller ones that
That
Only
is
cost
correct.
13,000, only. So,
Is there any questions from the public? This is your opportunity, if you have any questions, to come up and ask. Okay. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the public meeting.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the public meeting.
I'll second.
So we have a motion, a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Brian?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that we adjourned at 5:51. Go ahead and call the regular governing board meeting to order at 5:51 and some change here. We've gone through the roll call and also the Pledge of Allegiance. It is recommended the governing board approve the regular agenda consistent with board policy BEDB and temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve the regular agenda consistent with board policy BEDB and temporarily suspend governing board policy with which the agenda may be inconsistent.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Brian?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Show that it approved unanimously. Item 4.1, governing board updates. Does anyone have anything? Brian?
Yeah, I do. I got to visit the Champs Family Night at Estrella. I had a wonderful time. I took actually my son Joey with me, and we spent the evening making superhero masks, beating the drums on some of these balls, which was really actually pretty cool. He talked me into pickleball, but I'll tell you, probably my favorite part was Mrs. McAvoy's art class. The art that was on display was absolutely amazing. Those kids are, and I'll tell you, what's hard for me is that whole evening I was thinking, this is what our override pays for. This is the exact stuff. And you know, the art program PE, that's a big part of these kids' development. So we need to make sure we get this override passed. Okay.
Ms. Bixler?
Yes, a few things. I also had a chance to visit a number of the campuses over the last couple of weeks. The first was at Liberty Elementary School, where they had their Love of Learning night, and it's a terrific event. If you've never been there, it's just a lot of fun, a lot of games set up that are content-based, which allows the kids to try and explore and actually fail without penalty. It's really good. It's a really wonderful event, and second time I've been to it, and I really liked it. For me, the favorite part of that was the student art. There was some self-portraits that were done that were just incredible, considering they were fourth grade students. The depth of what they captured within that art was just amazing. There were a couple of them that especially captured, you could see the personality of their self-portrait within the work. It was just beautiful. It was wonderful to see that. I also want to call out the PTO at Liberty Elementary School. They did not only the very best, but also the only hot dog. So thank you very much for the PTO at Liberty Elementary School. Wonderful hot dog. I am a bit of a connoisseur on hot dogs. I test them all over the place, and they were really good. So congratulations on that. From there, I did go to Las Brisas to their Champs Night. And again, completely different format. A great turnout by the parents, but it was really focused on champs. And I want to really congratulate a couple of students, Chloe in 8th grade and Devin in 6th grade, who spoke. And what they spoke about was the impact of the override on them and what it means to them personally. We talk all the time about what it means, but they talked about how it felt. And that was really, really powerful. I also want to congratulate Coach Rodriguez and what he had done that night. Did an excellent job. Again, very, very good night on that. Champs night there, very well done, great turnout. From there, I went to the Estrella Mountain, their family night, their Champs family night, and just as Brian was saying, The drums were so cool. These big round balls and these plastic drums, and you hit them with sticks. It was a drum circle, but there must have been 24 of them. And it was incredible. It was a wonderful experience to watch that as it was going on. I also want to call out Ms. Morris and her staff. I don't know how they did it, but we need to keep this in mind for next time, because somehow they stopped the rain right before the event. I don't know how they did it, but excellent job. They stopped the rain. I thought it was going to get rained out. Did not. Wonderful. The last place I went to was Freedom Elementary School, and they had their literacy night. And again, it was a great event, good turnout. What was really exciting was watching the buddy reading program they have going on there. The buddies showed up with their reading buddy, and if you don't know how that works, you've got the kindergartners working with fourth graders, the first graders working with fifth graders, the second graders working with the fifth graders, and so on. And what they would do is they'd sit down and read together. And then after they wrote down things about what they had learned about their buddies. And it was a great thing to read. The student work on that was fabulous and really worth the read. So I really enjoyed that, seeing what they had to say about their buddy reading program and how well that was going. The last thing is really, really important. For me, it's very, very serious. This is the last meeting that Kelly Basinger is going to be at. Kelly Basinger has been in this district for a very, very long time. And that means a big difference in the financial welfare of this district. That experience you can't find it anywhere else. I do have some personal thank yous for Kelly. First of all, I'd very much like to thank her for keeping us out of jail. Thank you so much for doing it right and keeping us out of jail. I really did appreciate that. Also, I was impressed by how you could create, recognize, and then administer opportunities that without your base of knowledge, we never would have known about. You did it. You pulled in money that I didn't think we had. Incredible job doing that. Also, the way that you were able to shepherd us through the impact of this first year without the override. I thought it was going to be a lot more painful, and it was not. And that's because of the hard work you guys did. Admittedly, growth did help us a lot, but recognizing the opportunity and taking advantage of it kept us from a much more painful year this year than it very much could have been. And then finally, you taught me. I don't know if you knew it, but you're a teacher. You taught me in a way that not only could I understand what you were saying, you said it in a way that honored my question. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I will miss you.
Mr. Jensen?
Had the opportunity to go to the Rainbow Valley Curriculum Night. The teachers did a fabulous job. Still a lot of work on putting that information together, and really good night. And I'll echo Ms. Basinger's praise for Kelly. She will be missed. I've been coming to these meetings for a long time, and she's been a staple at these, and always know when she gives a presentation that she's got 3, 4, 7 layers deep in information that you can dig in, and she just got all that knowledge. So I always had confidence in everything that Kelly presented. So thank you very much.
Mr. Todd?
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to take a minute as well to thank Kelly. Speaking with her earlier today, a little ceremony, enjoying some nice cookies and snacks. When she started here, there were only 2 schools. When you think about that and how far we've come and the growth, it's amazing. And a lot of that success is echoed by my fellow board members is Kelly keeping us out of jail, in the black, not in the red on the budget, and navigating some pretty tough budget times. So I just want to thank her for that. Also had a opportunity to attend the kickoff by the PAC for the override, and I just wanted to thank Kelly Zimmerman. She is working day in, day out very hard to get this override passed, which is so important. So thank you to her. That's all I have tonight.
Okay. The thing I had was a recognition. I don't know if it's been done yet, but for Mr. Garrison, many of us may not know, he was named honorary commander at Luke Air Force Base. So I thank him for that, for stepping up. Might be something that people have kind of overlooked on the website, but I'd encourage the public to go ahead and read into that and So thank you for that. And also the same sentiments for Mrs. Basinger, talking to her, knowing that she's an individual who has seen the ups and downs of the district, has seen the district go from 2 schools to where we are now, going through the worst economic recession, one of the worst economic recessions the country's ever seen, public education probably has ever seen, navigating everything, or navigating the finances of the district through that. Seeing where public education used to be from an accounting standpoint versus as far as funding to where what we currently see. I think she's got some stories there that she could definitely educate some people on if she needed to go downtown possibly. But also just being down, like I like to say, down in the weeds and down in the mud and not quitting and sticking with us. And you will be missed.
I've done it by myself, but thank you.
And with that, we will move on to calls to the public. Is there any calls to the public? Consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like pulled?
Mr. President,
Yep.
I would like item 6.6 pulled.
Okay.
Mr. President, can we have 6.3 as well?
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exceptions of items 6.3 and 6.6.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as posted with the removal of items 6.3 and 6.6.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Brian?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
I am also an aye, show that it approved unanimously. We'll just move right into item 6.3. Mr. Todd.
Mr. Chairman, we're here again having mass resignations, which are upending our school classrooms. I just wanted to clarify, I had a few people who have inquired, are these all certified teachers? My understanding is a couple of these may be emergency substitutes, so I would just like to clarify the status of each of these teachers that are resigning.
Mr. Todd, I can clarify. 2 of the 4 are emergency teaching certified. 1 is a subcert. 1 is certified.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Nettle, could quickly, the emergency certification, I know it's changed a few times over the last couple of years. How does it stand now? What does it take to get emergency certified?
A signature by the superintendent and minimum qualifications from the state.
And those minimum
school.
qualifications are
Diploma, high school diploma.
high school diploma. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion on item 6.3, I'd entertain a motion to approve item 6.3.
Mr. President, I move that we approve item 6.3, the approval of personal action items.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Brian?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
I am also an aye, show that it approved unanimously. Item 6.6. Ms. Bixler.
Yes, thank you very much. The reason why I asked for this pulled is because there is language within this policy which is directly out of Senate Bill 1165, which I believe is unconstitutional. I cannot support this policy with that language in there.
Ms. Bixler, could
I
you
would,
say which policy? There's several.
Policy JJIA. Interestingly, JJIB R does not have that language. So, but JJIA does have the language that I find unconstitutional. Now, I would support all the other policy revisions that are here. Is just 6.6. I'm sorry, it's just JJIA within 6.6.
Is there any other discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would just ask what part of the language, where's the, a little more clarification, just so.
I believe part of the language is not only violation of Title IX, I think it's unconstitutional.
But which language? That's,
The second portion of designating who can participate in sports designated male or female.
Will that need to go through legal review? Dr. Schaff?
I could take it back to legal review for that specific question. Legal, I believe, has already looked at it, but for the changes that were recommended by ASBA, that could be an option.
Dr. Schaff, if I understand correctly, is it not possible to put a vote on this? So conceivably, it could be voted in with one negative vote, correct?
Yes, it could.
Any other discussion? And legal counsel's gone through this, correct? I'm assuming all these policies have been vetted at this point, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's directly out of Senate Bill 1165. I mean, that is the language of 1165. I also find that unconstitutional.
So yes, this policy was recommended proposal to be revised to be in compliance with new state statute. Has that state statute been tested yet in a court of law? It has, to my knowledge, it has not. Could that bring about future changes? Possibly, like many other things that can take place. But at this point, this is what the law is, and we would be required to follow the law.
If there's any other discussion on this item? If there is none, I'd entertain a motion to approve item 6.6.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item 6.6.
A second?
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Ryan?
Aye.
Paul? Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Mike? Mr. Todd?
Aye.
I am also an aye. All those opposed? Ms. Bixler?
Nay.
So that the motion carried 4-1. Item 7.1, discussion of Attorney General finding regarding November 8th, 2021 open meeting law complaint.
Mr. Aguirre, members of the governing board, this complaint was registered with the Attorney General regarding the district's failure to comply with open meeting law for the purpose of a committee work around the adoption of textbooks. So it's 100% accurate and appropriate that we needed to take additional action. Our governing board policy at that time, or for many years, did not include the process of requiring open meeting law. Our staff followed our own policy and frankly just didn't know that that was a requirement. So when we learned of it, we stopped our work. We basically redid that work with the committee following all open meeting law requirements. And then the board eventually approved the materials of the K2 science materials that we did at that time. So I would just want to make sure that the public understands that this is not a governing board, a true governing board infraction. It really is administratively. It's something we just didn't know. It was not something that we were trying to avoid doing in any way. We learned something, I would say, the hard way. But we have that clear part of our process. We've got upcoming resource materials that will be adopted through the course of this year, and staff has got firm plans in place to make sure that we are completely complying with the open meeting law going forward. And so I would just say to our public and our board, our apologies.
What fines were issued?
No, the requirement from the letter actually states that the district and the board has already ratified it and has corrected the issue. They recognize that the district has already corrected the issue, and so the requirement was that we speak about it in a public meeting and that we also place it on our governing board website. Initially, we placed it on the website with all of our other instructional resources and the process we use to be transparent with our public, thinking content-wise it matched with that. But we also recognize that people might be looking for it under the board itself, since the complaint was regarding the board. So we've actually kept it active in both places, so it could be found, and we will keep that up there for at least 1 year to comply with the Attorney General's request or requirement.
Was there any changes? I'm just curious for me. Was there any changes that the district made in materials from starting it per policy versus realizing that policy wasn't adhering to statute? So when we started it per policy and then we realized that it wasn't per statute, did we change any of the materials?
No, we
learning materials is what I'm asking.
No, we just simply put a pause on moving forward with the process until we could gather some additional information from the Attorney General's office for direction. We waited, I don't know, 6 months. We waited a long time for direction. So we put into place what statute required, and so we just simply restarted our committee, had them go through using the criteria, the process, made their recommendations, did this. We had already done the 60-day review, and then the board came back and approved it. The other thing we did do in terms of correcting things, because this administration and this board is fully aware of what that process should be, we also brought to the governing board a first and second reading to update our policy to make sure it matched up with statute, so that future administrations won't be caught in the same position, that it'll be clear what the expectations are.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question on this. I know the textbook adoption have had a number of revisions as far as the process over time. I'm assuming the curriculum has also seen some changes as far as adoption as well. Is that correct? Is this kind of in the middle of all that?
This is this is in reference specifically to the adoption of instructional resources, or a loose term of textbooks, which can be inclusive of things that are beyond what we traditionally know as textbooks.
Right, so it is
That
about,
policy has
it's
been
about
changed.
the
Yeah, the
materials.
curriculum policies are completely different than this one.
Okay, so this is about the
This is about the instructional
materials.
resources. Yes, the
Okay.
materials.
And I know that has gone through a number of changes over time, especially recently. There's been a number of changes that have occurred with that. So, and I'm assuming the changes that we discovered needed to be put in place this time are consistent with the other areas as well, right? This is just kind of a general thing that we need to do from now on?
We need to comply with this from here on out. So we've developed procedures here administratively beyond what's in policy to support that work, to make sure that's done properly.
And that's in every content area.
It doesn't matter what the content area is,
As long as
correct?
we're
Correct.
approving materials.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. President, I had just a quick comment. First of all, I don't hold the administration fully accountable on this. I think that unfortunately there are two groups that are supposed to watch our back on this, and they failed. That'd be our legal counsel and the ASBA. I commend the administration for moving so quickly and getting this taken care of and taking it seriously. We need to really make sure that we're getting good advice, not only from council, but from our other sources. And I think they fell short. That's all.
Mr. Jensen? Mr. Todd?
Mr. Chairman, I would echo Mr. Parks. We pay a lot of money to Gus Rosefeld law firm to be our legal counsel. And having this happen, to put it no other way, is unexcusable. I think it is upon this board to look at considering our options with legal counsel and perhaps retaining a new law firm. This is completely unacceptable, and we have heard in some side conversations, I had no idea this happens, this is how all the districts do it, and we've heard that from our legal counsel as well. So I think should be known. I think also we should take this a step further and make sure that we never have this happen again. And if the ASBA and Gus Rosefeld doesn't have our back, I would think that we need to agendize making all of our committees public record. Better to err on the side of caution than to have this happen. And the public, we have nothing to hide, and we continue to talk about transparency. So let's just make all of our committees posted in public, and that gives everybody a chance to participate and hear what's happening, or at least see minutes and video of it.
I would add that ASBA provides a model policy, and it is accurate that it was not in their model policy. As a result of that, they themselves are making some change to that. In terms of our own legal counsel, that comes about is when we put questions of legal issues in front of them, or if we put a particular policy in front of them and ask for legal advice, then they provide it. So as a rule, they don't go through our entire governing board policy to point out something that might be the same or different. So just a clarification there, that would be a different level of expense, et cetera. So I want to stay on topic, but I just want to clarify where we got advice on this and where we didn't.
Maybe we need to have them review all of our policies then. If ASBA's not doing it, we pay Arizona School Board Association an incredible amount of money to provide policy guidance, and if they're not keeping up on it, that's yet another large problem that we need to address. And if they're not, then certainly we need to have our legal counsel review all of these policies.
Just for clarification, Dr. Schuff, in terms of paying Russ Rosenfeld, isn't it correct that actually that's through the trust or insurance?
Yes, I would probably want to stay on topic. I don't,
Just
if we can.
Point of clarification, so. If there's no other discussion, we can move on to item 7.2. Discussion of first reading policy JLCB JLCB-R, JLCB-E. Dr. Schaff?
So let me just catch up with you here for a minute. So you see here, JLCB, the R is the actual regulation, the E is the actual exhibit. And then if the team here could put up on the screen the actual JLCB with the changes for that, the black line to current. All right. So this is relating to the immunizations, and just the information in red is the only changes to this. Got a little more formatting than usual that's showing up, but just really clarifying what immunizations are required for attendance and not, or those that are not required, and specifically, that may be a point of interest to people is the COVID-19 is not required for school attendance. Any questions or recommendations for this policy?
Mr. Parks? Ms. Bixler?
I have none.
Mr. Jensen? Mr. Todd?
Mr. President, I do have one. Basically, in the first line, it says subjects to the exceptions in ARS 15-873. I believe we're missing, and pardon me, I don't know what that symbol is, but it is everywhere else in the document. I don't know if that's required, but we're just missing it in that one
Oh,
spot.
the symbol. I will
apologize.
say I
I don't
looked
know
at
what that
all
is.
of our policies in ASBA, and all of them are listed this way, with the ARS, and then they list the numbers after that, if that's something that,
We have it down lower, the first big red line after the definition, or after hepatitis A. It does have that.
I'm trying to catch up.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that symbol is, but
I don't know the name of that either.
if you figure it out, let me know. We'll call it the squiggle.
I'll tell you what, I'll check. I'll check with folks that if, with your permission, that level of detail, we can correct it if we need to. And then we'll pay attention to all of our other policies if there's any change with that. Anything else? All right, thank you. We'll bring this back for a second reading, and if something else comes up between now and then, you can provide that information, and we'll do an update.
Item 8. Excuse me. Governing board comments. Any agenda topic requests? Paul, Michael?
Mr. President, I just put Kelly on notice, say we'd like to reconsider her retirement, but just giving her a little, we got a second, we're moving. I saw her stand at attention over a little bit, but no, I'm good.
Everyone good with the governing board meetings? Yep. Okay. Also, as a note, with the governing board meetings, please take note, members, that the week of the 3rd is when we're going to be starting some public hearings and forums to take place. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Do I have a motion and a second? All together? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Show that we adjourned at 6:24.
And we'll